so excited to be joined today by Chesley Heymsfield, a producer, writer, and overall creative talent who's worked on over 100 commercials, music videos, and films throughout her impressive career. She is also a person with MECFS, and most recently she is working on a documentary entitled Movie About Me to shine a bright light on this often misunderstood and hidden illness. Thank you so much for joining me. So I just want to get to know a little bit more about you personally. So you have ME/CFS as well. So where did that start for you? How long have you had it? What was your diagnosis journey like?
Well, thank you for asking, because it's so rare that I think myself and people like me get asked the question, how did your illness start? Because usually people don't even know what this illness is. And so for me, this is a whole new world of people caring. And that's really my mission too, is to kind of expand on that compassion and help to be a part of creating a more caring ecosystem for people who have ME/CFS. And so my story is just one of millions. And for myself, I was in college at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, when I was 18 years old. And it seems like a million years ago. Because it's such a different mindset, going from being a healthy, vibrant person to having this kind of careening snowball of symptoms that develop over time. And for me, it was over the next 23 years and going.
Wow.
So it's been such an odyssey. And when I think about it, it's just all these chapters of my life, but in every chapter of my life, there's a story about this illness, and it's my own private story. So it's like there's this public novel that's been published that people know about. It kind of is a little boring. And then there's this other novel. It's in the dark library. And that's the more interesting one. And that's the one that usually I only know about exists. So that's been, in big picture, my story has been a roller coaster of a ride, and a very private, a very lonely, a very painful, a very torturous journey. And just knowing that there are other people out there, even yourself, like you, that have this. I never even knew a person that had this disease until having it for probably 15 years.
Wow, that's right. Because I know there probably wasn't a lot on social media for a while. That's how a lot of people connect patients nowadays too.
That's right. Absolutely. And you know, so for a decade, I didn't even have a diagnosis.
Oh my goodness.
Decade.
So what was that like? Were you able to go to doctors? Was anyone able to give you any answers? Did you have support?
I went to the best doctors. The best doctors are often the ones that don't know.
Right.
And
for the obvious too. Yeah.
They're looking, they always say, we're not looking for zebras. What is the saying? You got to help me here. If you hear hooves, don't look for zebras. Well, we're the zebras. So like, that's not cool. So, you know, maybe you guys should be a little bit more open-minded, because to me, it's a bit curious that doctors see people like me come in all the time. They have to. And I know it's not taught in medical school. Right. So it's not, so that is a big problem that needs to be addressed. But then when you see people like me come in over and over again, because it must happen, there are enough of us.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you say there's a pattern here, right? Like zebras are about patterns, but just being a human being is about looking at patterns, not even just as a doctor, as a human. Wouldn't you see that there's a pattern here emerging of people that have this constellation of symptoms?
Right.
And why were we denied for so long? And that's really part of what this documentary journey is about, is understanding why. And I'm very curious why.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that. I think it's amazing. I just am so inspired by what you're doing. So you're doing a road trip to meet people with this illness. So what inspired you? Tell me a little bit about your start with this, the movie about ME.
Yeah. So I went to, I went to one doctor many years ago when I first really understood what I had. And he said, why don't you do a documentary about this? And I was like, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. No one's going to care. Nobody cares. No one even knows what this is. I've searched for 10 years to even get a diagnosis. I don't know anyone who even has it.
Right.
And I'm thinking, just as a logical person and a filmmaker, no one's going to watch this movie. But then fast forward, and I have to give hats off to Jen Bray and her entire team for making Unrest. That was really a watershed movie, a watershed event for this entire community of people who really need exposure. So I thank her so much and her whole team for doing that. And so that was really an important milestone for me to be able to, and our whole team and this whole community, jump off and make the next iteration of a conversation in the movie industry around ME. And so it really, you know, now with COVID happening, COVID-19, in March of 2020, I was volunteering with my friend, Dr. ME at the Stanford Genome Technology Center, and helping to inform the government officials and the media companies that there was a high likelihood that this novel virus would be developing in some people into the illness that you and I know, and people in this community know, is ME or ME/CFS or chronic fatigue syndrome or yuppie flu, or there are a million names, which I really appreciate that OMF includes so many names, that so many things that the organization is looking into. Open mind about how are these related, and really refining the search. And keeping an open mind helps to be able to do that. And so yes, with that happening, I thought immediately people are going to respond.
Oh, absolutely.
New York Times this is going to be on the cover. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I was at the time in Davis, California. And so, so I was up in Davis, and I was just like, I'm going to just walk and talk on my phone, and I'm going to call everyone in the media, and I'm going to send emails to everyone. And this is like the biggest story. And so I walked like, I was like a mile, and it was like 2 miles. And I was under so much personal sense of responsibility. I felt like in this community, we can forecast that there's a likelihood that COVID-19 is going to develop in some people into ME/CFS, right? And I'm sitting here saying, like, we have access to the most renowned physicians, researchers, advocates, people who are so knowledgeable in this field, and they want to tell the world about ME/CFS.
And warning.
The warning, and the warning, I don't know if the warning really got out, did it? I can't tell.
There was a news that came out, or there was news that came out with CNN that said Fauci warns that that COVID could spark chronic fatigue syndrome in some patients. And I think that was one of those watershed moments where we were getting acknowledgement by these huge experts that were in the spotlight. And 6 months into COVID, the COVID outbreak, we were having this. People were not recovering. And then it's when it wasn't a maybe, it was these people do qualify for an ME/CFS diagnosis now. They're 6 months from having COVID. They're having these symptoms of post-exertion malaise, of fatigue and unrefreshing sleep that's so impairing that they can't go about their daily lives anymore. So now they're qualifying. So now people have to listen, because we have this outpouring of new patients, and even on our end at Open Medicine Foundation, we see these new people all the time that maybe find us on social media and say, before COVID, I had never heard of chronic fatigue syndrome.
So but that's a lesson. And the lesson is that even potentially if you have COVID-19 infection, that you might know something is wrong, like it's feeling of a switch.
Right.
In a way that there's something that breaks in your healing cycle, that breaks in your energy cycle. And it's a broken feeling in a way. So, and you're right, it's a feeling that is not something you've ever felt before, even when you've been sick. So you kind of know what being sick feels like, regardless of what a trigger may be. It still falls in that same pattern. But this is something very different and almost indescribable to someone that's never experienced it before. So that's part of the challenge.
Right. But I do. Yeah, exactly. And I do find it amazing that so many people, even before COVID, millions missing, right? Millions of people with chronic fatigue syndrome. Yet the people that got newly diagnosed after COVID, they had never heard of it before. So I think that's one of the most important things about your movie, especially as well, is if we could get more people to understand, ME/CFS, I want people to have heard that before, that term, not have it be some, chronic fatigue syndrome. I know is kind of a term that people have heard of, but they don't take it seriously because fatigue, right? Everyone has fatigue and the connotation isn't as severe as the disease itself. But I know the work that you're doing, you're meeting these people that have just been so incredibly impacted by this.
Absolutely. And again, it's a pleasure to meet them, because for me, this is a very cathartic journey. Absolutely. Literally, because I really didn't know many people that had it. And wow. Also, the more people that I meet who have it, I'm like, these are the best people ever. And they're so resilient, and they're so powerful, and they're so courageous. And I'm just so inspired by them. And like yourself, and people care. People in this community care about one another. And I think that, bringing us all together, we need a big tent here. We all got to work together. We got to work together and make this happen. So I think, what better than a movie? Movies are fun. People watch them. People like to go to them. They're incredibly insightful. And I like this idea of kind of bringing you into the world of someone that has it. But in bringing you into the world with this movie About Me, as we're calling it, I love that. Like, it took me a while. Took me walking a long while. Because I want to really express in this film that we're funny people. We're cool people. We're quirky people. We're interesting people. We're diverse people. We're complex people. And that we're people. We're people too.
We're more than me. Yeah.
We're more than me. It's more than me. And this idea is that I think that if people understand us, if people, when they get to know us, when they get to love us, they're going to help us. Right. And at this point, we've been kind of thrown into the shadows and created as an other. And others are expendable. They're disposable. They're not important to society, but that's wrong. We are important to society. Every single one of us is important. And the world is missing a lot by not having us fully in it. We are, people of indomitable spirit. And you really don't realize how much the human spirit roars until you're in the corner or you're in the shadow. The human spirit to live, the will to live, is so fierce in everyone. And it's an amazing human experience, if I could say, because I didn't know that I had that in me. You don't know until you're there, and we've been there. We've all been there. So I think that I love being able to work together with everyone. And you're right that this can be so isolating. And so I would love to use this as kind of a concert of us all working together. Right. And there's a way where people can go on our website, movieaboutme.com, plug there. And you can fill out a form where you can participate. And so anyone can sign up. Anyone in the world, anyone in the whole world can sign up and say that you want to participate in this movie. And look, we all have our phones. Okay. We all have some kind of a smartphone. Right. And so there are settings that you can put on your phone that make it more professional grade that I can share. There are suggestions we have on how you can film yourself. And then we have a platform where people can actually upload their footage, because the idea is to make this the largest open source documentary of all time, because these are people who deserve to be exposed to the world, and the world deserves to know about them. And if we all have the technical capability, which wasn't even around 5 years ago or 10 years ago, this quality that we would have in our own, in the palm of our hands, then let's use it. And so as a part of, yes, we're going on this journey, and that's going to be one segment of the story, but I love this idea of kind of experimental and getting people to just take videos of themselves. And, a documentary is a long-term project, right? So you never know what's going to happen. Right. And the more footage we have and the more people involved, the better. We all deserve to live. And our voices matter. Right. So this is really just providing a forum for us to be able to all come together and use our voices together to be even stronger. And so anyone in the community, however you want to be involved, there are ways for everyone to be involved, including people that are caretakers.
Right. That's
people
a big thing
family
too,
members.
sure. Yeah. There's so many caregivers that are out there. So it's, you know, millions of people with ME, double that, right? Millions of people sometimes that are also caregivers.
It makes you wonder, how is it possible that's remained in the shadows then?
Exactly. And I do hope that, you know, what is happening with COVID is devastating. And the people that are sick now, it's just, it shouldn't have happened like this. We should have had the recognition earlier. But if we can come together and have this effort to help get us further, we want to start making this progress for the people with long COVID, that they know that there is help that's on the way, that there's this community here, and we've been here for a while, and we want to support each other, and we want to see actual change. We want to see change in research. We want to see more recognition, so that when people go to doctors, they're able to get a diagnosis. They're not just kind of falling in limbo for years. And I love that, exposing the narrative, that's what you're doing as well.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh, I think it's great. I think it's so great. But this is so fun. And I mean, it's great to meet so many awesome people, even during a pandemic. And it's already a sisterhood, a brotherhood, a family, a connection that we all have.
It's amazing. And we'll be so excited to share updates about this project along the way, and just to share with the community. And I'm so excited to see this come to life. And I know so many other people are, and it's amazing to meet you. And we want to keep hearing from you, and you're doing this awesome thing for the community. So we really just thank you so much for this.
Oh my gosh, I thank all of you. And this is an uphill journey. And as long as it's not one alone, and so if people can contribute in any way, we're grateful, because this is going to take a whole team, a whole community to make this little project happen.
We'll share a link to the website's movie About M.E. or movie About Me. So thank you so much for joining and for sharing this all with us. We're really excited.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca, and everybody else. See you soon.